all these empty seats. You want to try to make it look like it's a yeah, this is waiting for it to make it look good or to make it look bad. So take some different angles. It looks like there's going to be different features. So take like a big full shot, take multiple pieces. Some are going to be blurry and whatever, that's the way it happens. But like take some that are back here, take some full shots of like here's the different people speaking. The B-roll, you want to do that, but exposure like here's some of this person talking, here's some of the crowd talking, or the core talking. You can over the crowd and kind of about where you're at. Hopefully we get some more people in before then. But like just the things that are interesting, and if somebody watches that later, even if like let's say I listen to it and you showed that to me later, I would know everything that's going basically on in this space. Does this all make sense?
Yeah. Do you want me to like set up the cameras right in there with you, like recording all the things, or like?
This is B-roll.
Okay.
Not A-roll.
Okay.
You gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't want you to. So yeah, treat it like A-roll. Sometimes we do get events like we had the other day where we filmed the whole thing.
Yeah. Like that.
This one is.
It's a B-roll.
They didn't ask us to film the whole thing. I tried to get clarification. They didn't give. They just. It sounded like overview. So that's what we're gonna go. Well, I don't even think it would take that long. I would just say, come back when you don't want to interrupt it once they're actually presenting. But I would get enough so that people get a feel. This is what's happening. So if they wanted to use it in like an advertisement or something later, or promotional stuff, they didn't ask us to document the entire thing. They wanted it. They chose it. You gotta learn.
Thank you.
So if you guys want to go down until like right before it starts, I don't know what session starts.
Is someone going to be taking over? I'm back.
That's fine.
Check. Okay, great. Wow, what a nice ambience to this mic. Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome to Code. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is probably the first time we've really all been in a big space together, and I'm so excited for today. Code, we started in 2019, and then we couldn't do it again. And so to just be together talking about DEI again, all together, it just makes me feel good. So I'm like really excited about what we have planned for you today. This Lunch and Learn, let me just say that the wonderful food that you're noshing on is a gift from the wonderful people at Kuma's Corner in the West Loop. So if you're ever over there and wanna, say hi to them and thank them. And I hope you're at other thing, like a little bit of housekeeping, some thanks that we want to say. So you may have come in and the DJ outside. We're going to have DJ music all day until 4 p.m. and that is going to be supplied by the Columbia College DJ Club. So we've got Holland, Ayu, Josh, and you heard Carly earlier helping keep our spirits raised. So yay for good music. And the DJ Club. So we're here in person, I'm excited. How many of you are taking part in the virtual group this morning? Yeah, hands up. All right, so that was our first time using it. You know, we're gonna send a feedback survey at the end. We wanna know, you know, how you felt about it and try to make it easier to navigate if you had any issues or if you didn't. We wanna hear all the good, the bad, and the wonderful. So hopefully, hopefully we can work with campus groups to, you know, refine that process and get it down. But I think for the first time, I think it was pretty cool to have a virtual career fair in the campus groups apps. And they look forward to hearing the feedback as well because it helps them fine tune that. So I'm your host, I'm Darlene Jackson from the Career Center. How many of you have been to the Career Center? Yes, that's right, because we are where you get all of your information from. I say we're a four-headed monster, right? Jobs, internships, on-campus, off-campus employment, portfolio development, career development, resumes, cover letters, all of the stuff that you need to get you going on your career path. So, along with myself, my colleague Angela Sheridan, my colleague Valerie Robbins, she's actually still in the virtual fair, so she's not here. And we are partnered with the TRIO program, so Monica Teixeira, our good friends in TRIO, and so to all the students that are here from the program, thank you, we appreciate you for coming. So Code is back. It's an example of a complex collaboration. What does that mean? Many departments have supported us in getting you here today, and for that we're really thankful. I wrote this down because I didn't want to forget anybody. Sarah Schroeder, Alumni Engagement, Monica Jeswal Oliver, Business and Entrepreneurship, Orterio Villa, Director of Student Organizations and Leadership, Rachel Horton, Student Persistence, Fashion Studies, Student Diversity and Inclusion, Strategic Communications, our academic partners, Communications, but in particular the TRIO program for sure. So Monica, we appreciate you, thank you. This is also Code Week. This is this is TRIO Week, and this is the second time Code has been a part of TRIO Week. So we're ecstatic about that. I should say that Code is partially funded by a grant from the Office of Academic Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So yes, give them a hand. Can we do that? I know we're eating, but let's show our appreciation. So thank you to Rocky Monroe, Jessica Mahary, and Danielle Alexander for their the help from their office. And I really want to thank the team in the Career Center who have really assisted us greatly in bringing this event together today. Our fearless director, Eric Friedman, and team members, Tom Joyce, Janelle Sterrick, Mariah Cowan, Adam Pollack, Brian Sokol, Eric Wardlow, Rebecca Ruling, Chaka Reeves, Quinn Haggerty, Jennifer Halperin, Laura Daniels, LaShawn Kevin Robinson, Tori Johnson, and our student workers, our peer coaches, including Sophie Polito for all of our graphic design work and branding that you see for the event. Yay! All right, so there are companies that are now dedicating themselves to providing structural support that nurtures and encourages cultural expression and understanding in the workplace. More and more, we hear from companies every day that are growing, they're removing barriers for entry that once held opportunities at bay. We work every day to create these talent pipelines for more specific and intentional opportunities with companies and organizations throughout the country. Corporate America is changing, and you are that change. Doing away with the word underrepresented, okay? This is why Code exists. So be encouraged. And now, if you read your agenda, I have to say, unfortunately, Leslie Gordon from Disney cannot make it today. She's putting out some fires with legislation, government, things that are happening, and there's a lot happening in Florida right now. So we will be proud and attentive for our one distinguished keynote speaker today, Paul Garnes, who is a Columbia alum, and you might want to let him in the room now. He's a Columbia alum from the class of '96, received an honorary Doctor of Arts degree from the college in 2016. He's a member of our Board of Trustees. Paul Garnes serves as the president of Array Filmworks and is the longtime producing partner of Ava DuVernay. As president, he oversees all aspects of creative development, physical production, and post-production for the company's television and film slate. He's overseen the company's productions such as Colin in Black and White at Netflix, DMZ at HBO Max, Naomi at the CW, and Queen Sugar and Cherish the Day at Home, among many others. You can find more of his program on, more of his bio on the program that you received, so please read it. And without further ado, welcome from California via Zoom, our esteemed guest and keynote speaker, Paul Garner.
Thank you guys so much. I wish I was there. I know the weather has finally gotten better in Chicago. It's the one thing I don't miss about Chicago is the fun times that I had there on Michigan Avenue during January, February, and March. But there are fond memories, and I'm so happy to be here with you over Zoom. It's such a wonderful organization, something that didn't exist when I went to Columbia, and so it's so important, and what you guys are involved in is so necessary. And I feel like I can maybe tell you a little bit about my background, and that might help even associate the necessity of code and the work that's happening in the diversity space. I, as you heard, graduated in '96, and once graduating, there was no semester in LA, which some of you may know about. So when I graduated, I actually worked at Columbia in the film cage, ran the film cage, which used to be on Michigan Avenue back in the day, and decided to go out and visit Los Angeles. As I was a film major, and it seemed like it was the place to go. I went out and visited and decided I was going to move. So a year after graduation, I moved to Los Angeles with no real support. The one thing that I had going for me was really kind of an unofficial network of Columbia alum, people who had graduated in the 1 or 2 years before me that had gone out, and gave me kind of at least an entry point to understanding the landscape, understanding opportunities. But there was really one striking thing that I found coming from Columbia, where Chicago was a pretty diverse city. Moving to Los Angeles, specifically in the film business, was not so diverse. And there weren't a lot of faces of people that looked like me, and there weren't a lot of pathways that I could look at to say, oh, I can understand how this person got there. But I did have this really kind of strong network of alum that really helped me get those first few opportunities. After that, there was a casting director named Ruben Cannon who was from Chicago. He was the first Black casting director in Hollywood, and he offered me what ultimately was an internship. At the time, I thought I was just working for free, but ultimately it was an internship in his office, and he was finishing a movie with Sony as a producer. It was his first time producing a film, and I was able to go in his office and really start to build an understanding of the ecosystem of Hollywood, of who the players were, how things operated in Los Angeles. And one thing as I look back, I realized that the relationships I made in my first 5 years at a school were the most important relationships in my life. Those relationships allowed me to find opportunities over the next 15 years that really defined my career, that really gave me those opportunities to move up and work in the different categories as I wanted to work with. I was a physical production producer, and what that means is that there's kind of like two sides of it. There's a creative producer and a physical production producer. I was one that was really interested in the nuts and bolts. How do you actually make production work? How do you find the financing? How do you get it off its feet and hire the crew? And all the things that I had done while I was at Columbia as a student, I now was trying to translate that into the real working world. And those opportunities that were given to me then really opened up the ability for me to do that. And again, there was no semester in LA, there was no even at the studios and networks, there was no diversity, DEI executives, there was no term of BIPOC, none of those things that we so cleverly have today to help represent or even talk about, the language to talk about the situation. As I came up in the business and years and years ago, as I started working with Ava, we had an opportunity to, Ava created a show that was on OWN called Queen Sugar, still on. We're actually shooting the final season right now. And one of the ideas that she had, which was surprisingly very revolutionary at the time, was she was only going to hire first-time women directors to direct on this series. And that was pretty provocative because, and I've now kind of gone back to look, the DGA, which I'm a member of, which is the union for directors, but they also cover assistant directors and unit production managers, which was my category, was a very different organization back then. Back in the early 2000s, and it really didn't track data on race or gender before 2010. But back then, women of color made up only 3% of directors in the DGA. 3% of all shows shot, movies and television shows, were 3% women of color. From all women, it was 11%. And for men of color, it was a little less than 14% across, again, all shows being made. And so, most shows, that means would never have a person of color or a woman to be in the director roster at all over the whole season. And we were now saying that we were going to only hire women and mostly first-time directors because there weren't very many women in the DGA at the time. That really opened up two very interesting things. One, what we found was that there were many people who had done everything they were supposed to do. Women that had gone in and raised money to direct an independent film, taking money from all of their family and friends and done whatever they had to do to raise $100,000, $200,000, maybe $1 million to make a movie. Make that movie, get it out into the ecosystem of film festivals, things that, could get it displayed, win awards. And even after doing all that, there were no opportunities professionally in the film and television business. And we were really kind of looking at that as something that we should disrupt. And we easily found a list of qualified directors who had done all those things, who should have had an opportunity to work professionally. And we were in a great position to give that an opportunity. The positive side of that is that the vast majority of the 42 women over the 7 seasons that we've been doing the show now have bona fide professional careers. And it sparked a deficiency that other people looked at to say, wow, if they were able to do it, and I should be able to do it. And other shows started hiring. Some even said, hey, we're going to hire all women, but many of them made sure that there were women involved now in the director's roster. And then when you look at the DGA today, a little over 10 years later, those numbers have changed. It's gone from, and I still don't think they're where they should be, but it's gone from 3% women of color now to 10%. It's gone from 11% of all women to 23%, and for men from 14% to 22%. What's sad though is that we're still in a place where we have too many firsts. First time a woman has done this, first time a Pacific Islander or Asian has done this, first time a Latina has done this, first time a Black has done this, and it really is at a point now where that's too far. We're past all that. We shouldn't be having so many firsts still. And so I think that there's an obligation that the studios, the networks, that the establishment has to make sure that these firsts are something of the past, where the hiring practices are blind, and it's not something where I'm I'm gonna hire a woman just because I want to make sure that at least there was one woman. No, I wanna go out and hire somebody who can really contribute to the quality and experience of my production or my job. And I think we're getting to that place. I'm hoping that now that there are programs within every major corporation that at least is critical of that corporation's hiring practices and make sure that that voice is had. The one thing that I know that we've done on the array side, Ava and I came from doing independent films. That was my start. I started doing independent productions, which meant we had no studio, no real money to do anything. But what we did have was freedom, and that freedom was we could hire who we wanted to hire. There was no pressure on who we had to hire. And what that meant was that our crews ended up being very diverse. And it didn't look like most productions. And people would come on our sets and say, wow, you know, it's a very different feel. You know, usually it's all white men, and you guys have, you know, people of color, you have women in positions of leadership. Like, how do you do that? We've taken the concept in the studios now and their interest in trying to really find a way to make productions more representative, and created something called Array Crew, which is a database of 7,000 people of color and women who work professionally in the industry. Even any of you guys that are film students that have one credit, something your short film or an independent film that you've worked on, can be in that database where the studios can go in and look and say, if you're really committed to hiring people of color, here they are. You have no excuse not to be able to find them. And this program is something that is open to everybody, and all major studios are involved in pulling from that data to help in their hiring practices. But other studios have programs too. There's a director's program at ABC. Netflix has a number of programs, all to help bring people in and expose and give opportunities that we may not have had before. And that kind of leads us to today, right? So back in the early days when I graduated in the 90s to now, these programs exist. You know, 25 years or so later, after I was in the industry, now we're here, you guys are in a program to even identify the companies that are interested in this opportunity. What's next? And I think the big couple of points to look at is not just the company's roles, the establishment's role for whatever industry you're going into, but it's also your role. And you have an opportunity to go into these environments and show who you are. And I think that you should be comfortable and open and know that you deserve to be there. They should be happy to have you there. And it's time now for us to mature into owning a seat at the table that we have not been given over the years. I think that as you also look forward, you have a responsibility to be ready. Take advantage of it. Don't be afraid to take advantage of those opportunities. I look back at the opportunities that I was given at the time, and there were things that, you know, were very difficult over the years, and there were opportunities that I was given that helped me and gave me insight on how to proceed. And as we look forward, you guys will soon be in the marketplace working, being contributors in whatever field it is that you're going into. And once you get in there, the important thing is that these establishments, these issues that we have, collective issue of us as a group, not necessarily one person who's holding us back. So as we get in there, we owe it to ourselves to look at these institutions that we belong to, that we compel change internally, that we bring up opportunities and bring people in to the fold that may have not gotten the opportunity. Make sure that we're looking at these areas of vulnerability. You know, we have productions that we're doing now where we're looking at how do we, you know, look at diversity for more than just color and gender, and even maybe anybody with disabilities or things that would normally keep you from the marketplace that shouldn't. And I think that as you guys go into the marketplace, that's really the next step in your journey. You're starting your careers, you will quickly be in a place that you can advocate and maybe even dictate change. And so I feel obligated to charge you with that same thing that I was given, which was an opportunity at some point to get a start. And once you have that start, make sure that you're a part of what makes whatever your respective industry is better. And know that before you, people came and had to do the exact same thing. And before them, there were a bunch of firsts that had to go in and be the only person that looked like or felt like they felt. And had to persevere and make that change to give all of us, me and you, those opportunities moving forward. So I hope that the rest of your day goes well as you guys mingle and meet, and know that many of you in that room, as you look across at each other, aren't just in a class coming out of college, but you're in a class going into society, and even there in that room with you, you'll possibly make connections that could pay off 10, 20 years down the line. And know that you have each other's backs, and you will get out there and do some amazing things in the future. I appreciate the time. I hope you guys have a really wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Garnes. What a wonderful and inspiring speech, right? Yeah, I agree. I just want to say thank you to our provost, Marcella David, before she takes off. Thank you for dropping into code today. Awesome. How do you guys feel? Yes. I mean, I feel good. I feel really good. It's really nice to look out at your faces. So coming up, we have an alumni panel. I just want to say that there are people, you know, besides yourself that are striving every day to try to do what Paul said, right? Which is to take up space, take agency wherever you go, to know that you're valued and that you have value, and then to push, you know, to gently nudge in some instances, push boundaries and horizons so that people can be seen. And so I think, you know, the message that he sends is that it's on all of us to really try and do those things to know, you know, that you belong. The sense of belonging isn't given to you, you kind of have to feel it. So coming up, we have some people who are going to maybe talk about that and how they've done it in their own careers. We've got some awesome alums for our alumni panel discussion, and they're going to come to the stage now. First, we have Aisha Jaco, Columbia alum. Aisha is an award-winning nonprofit choreographer and creative director. She currently serves as the executive director of Westside United. She serves on the board for Choose Chicago, UIC School of Public Health. She holds a master's in arts management, arts in youth and community development from Columbia College. Welcome, Aisha. Our next panelist is Sylvia Rivera. She is a senior business strategist at the Listening Post Collective. She leads the development of the program strategic framework and design tools and resources for its civic media portfolio. Before joining the LPC, Sylvia served as managing director of Vocalo Radio. How many of you guys know Vocalo? Yeah? Okay, good. She has 2 decades of experience in creating programs led by and for people of color, working in the intersection of cultural expression, community media, and civic engagement. Welcome, Sylvia. And our third and final panelist, Julian Gilliam, aka Logic, all caps, L-O-G-I-K. NFT and Web 3.0 consultant, a St. Louis to Chicago transplant, and next generation visionary, graduated from Columbia College with a degree in animation, film, and video. Diversified the advertising industry at Leo Burnett, and is a former creative director at Google, an early adopter of NFTs and Web3 technology. Logic's tech background and unique voice earned him a robust following on Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. He navigated the underground art scene and rose within corporate America as an innovator. Welcome, Logic. Well, that's all good stuff. Hello, everyone. How do you feel? Good, good, good. So we're just gonna have a conversation, and we're gonna let you guys listen in. So, and at the end, you can ask some questions. So if anything piques your curiosity, don't be afraid to jump up. And you can come to the center mic, or you can ask from where you are as long as you project. Okay, that's my only caveat. So this panel is really in code in general. Again, I say it's about complex collaborations and how being inclusive brings about the best results. And so this discussion is really entitled Talk the Code, Mastering the Art of Relationship Building to Diversify Your Network and Achieve Your Goals. So it's a short panel, and we're just gonna talk about how you got to where you are, what role Columbia may have or may not have played in it, but what you take away from the experience and what you leave behind to, surpass anything that may have, maybe felt like a roadblock. So we're just gonna share what's on our hearts, and we can take a few questions at the end. So, let's start with you, Aisha. You are an executive director of a nonprofit organization. How do you move from arts, an arts management or management degree into running an organization where you have to be responsible for budgets, millions of dollars, lots of social programming? What's your day like?
All right. Hello, everyone. I have to say that Columbia definitely prepared me for that switch. When I came to do my master's. I had just completed undergrad majoring in dance and mass communication at Illinois State University. And, I came to orientation. At the time, there was a movie theater a few on the next block that way. And that's where the orientation was for grad school. And I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do media management because I was a journalist at Illinois State, and I'm gonna continue on. I'm gonna work for Oprah. And I went to the orientation, and they started reading out the classes: statistics, finance, accounting. I'm like, okay, I hear you, but I'm gonna go out of here, and I'm gonna go next door, because that one is arts and youth and community development, and I have dance background. I'm definitely for the people. So let me go here. Still under arts and community management, and what the courses were finance, accounting. So I said, you know what, I just gotta roll with this, and this is what I'm supposed to do. And so in being in that, we really learned just the general principles of management that was able to be transferable to running a nonprofit. It's really not that different. You do have to do your due diligence, and as executive director of the entire operation, just making sure from operations, HR, payroll, financial management, like everything that I learned here really propelled me on my journey. After graduating, I worked for 5 years at a social service agency. I went to start after that the Lupe Fiasco Foundation, which at the time, Chicago was like on the convergence of hip hop and philanthropy, and you had Commons Foundation, Kanye had a foundation here, and so I did that work. And again, everything that I learned from Columbia allowed me to co-found that with Lupe and grow and learn about local philanthropy here and just program offerings. And I was able to come back to Columbia to utilize the genius of the current student body. So through people like Paul Terrell and the Center for Community Arts Partnerships, through, I don't know if anybody has Larry Minsky for a teacher, Lawrence Minsky, the ad agency course, they designed a lot of our nonprofits, marketing plans and materials. So it was a full circle moment. So if we fast forward to today, in those times I did not work for Oprah, but I did get funding from her, $5 million to help with COVID response efforts here in Chicago. I'm in an industry which is collaborated through healthcare and community engagement that I had never been in, but that core toolkit that I built here has allowed me to be fluid and to take those general skills across the spectrum of, running an arts organization, being an artist, and now being in this executive director role.
Awesome. I love that you took into account your creative practice, dance, and said, what is gonna feel comfortable? And you looked at a couple of different things and found out there was no easy way. You had to sacrifice, you had to figure it out. You were gonna have to jump those hurdles no matter what. So I love that. Sylvia, I know that you come from like a community radio background and then helped launch a public radio station, an experiment, a social experiment, right? Public radio for Black and Brown voices. And maybe you can tell us about, how you got from Columbia to like Radio Arte and then,
Sure.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the invitation, Darby. And it's really wonderful to be in the space that I wish that we would have had back when we were at Columbia College. So I hope that you all are taking advantage of the space. I had a very sort of non-traditional path in my career. It took me 6 years to get my BA. I started off at UIC. I went to community college. I took a year off of school. And so when I ended up at Columbia College, we were just talking about this in the green room, like I really knew what I wanted to do. And part of the reason for that is because I had a very fortuitous experience of when I was 18, I joined a youth media training program called Radiologically. And so as part of this training program, I was exposed to journalism, the arts, storytelling, and just really thinking about media literacy and the impact that media had on shaping our community's worldview. And so as I grew up in that training program, I began to identify with the need to have more people in leadership positions that were, media owners and makers, because I realized that we had a lot of talented people, that we had a lot of producers and artists and creators, but we didn't have a lot of people giving us chances and making sure that they were opening up opportunities to, extend our creativity outside of just pitching a story and then getting it shut down because, the person in charge didn't see value in that story.
to hear that.
And so I, as a result of that experience, what I wanted to pursue here at Columbia College was media management so that I could equip myself with all of the tools that Aisha just mentioned in understanding, well, what are the things that I need to know to build up capacity, to think about sustainability, to think about how to engage with my community. And so I, again, at a young age, I was given access to leadership positions. And so while I was in school at Columbia College, this really became my incubator to put together a strategic plan for the radio station I was working for, put together a marketing plan, put together an engagement strategy. This was all my incubation school to test a lot of the ideas. And I had a lot of the support system to say, like, okay, this is the plan I'm putting together, and then bringing folks to my professors and the folks that I was working with here to make sure that my gut instincts were solid. And so that is an experience that I then took on later at local radio in a more sort of corporate environment of knowing that I had to take in some of the learnings from working in a more sort of grassroots community radio environment to a more sort of corporate environment and being sure that I had the skill sets to navigate that. And I think that I was able to translate that because fundamentals that I learned here.
That's awesome, because Vocalo really grew under your leadership. I saw it with my own eyes, so that's awesome. I saw you nodding your head, Logic, when she was talking about just the ownership part and giving chances and having to navigate an industry, not necessarily from the front, but from the back end. What do you think about that in your own experiences?
Yeah, I love that the topic of navigation, especially when we talk about corporate structures. For me, it was always just like looking at the perspective that just people have ideas, and for me, like a function, it was like a function as is a degree, like no one can take it from you. So I always moved from a position of ownership or autonomy. And especially if you're an artist, like many of us are that attend Columbia, it's almost hard to fathom working for someone forever or being just one specific thing. But it's all about perspective when you enter these spaces about, so instead of me going to advertising school, I was a junior art director. And I treated it as I was in school and getting paid at the same time. But it wasn't about being in advertising. It was about learning the tools that I wanted to do, that I needed in order to create the things I want to do personally. So whether that's like processes that you don't learn when you're doing something with no capital, with your homies that still might get millions of views, but then they also put something in perspective when you on a set where there's $1 million budget with paid advertisement and it barely cracks a 500,000 views, right? So then it kind of informs who has the power. Is it your intuition and ingenuity amongst your peers, or is it the corporate structure in which you feel like you have to submit to? And then you start to realize as you navigate that most people just go to work and go home. And then it's easy to fall into line with everybody who goes to work and go home. But as you all hear, most of you don't just go to school and go home. You go to your friend's house, make some music. You go to your homie house to throw up some paint. You go and throw up some wheat pasting, whatever it might be. Now the thing is, your perspective and the things that you hold dear to your heart, that thing that wakes you up at night, the thing that keeps you up at night. When you go into these corporate rooms, most people don't have the lived experience to apply to the concept or campaign that they're being pitched or that they're pitching. Is usually something that cherry picked from like Complex magazine or Juxtaposed, and then now they're trying to create a campaign around it versus being an art person and playing both business and art and being in the space to be able to speak the jargon, to be able to put your ideas in a way that everybody can understand, but also realize that you have something special that no one else has, and that's a lived experience. I'll give one example. I worked in advertising for about 10 years before I got to Google, and then I just quit Google 3 weeks ago. And when a lot of these campaigns are like in advertising or any of these ideas, most people are just picking things, again, like over television or pop culture news and feeds. But one thing that they can't take away from you is the thing that drives you, whether it's going to South by Southwest like I did or Art Basel, and then you go back into these corporate rooms to talk about Gen X or the millennial generation about ideas in nature. So some people have things that are real. This is you having a lived experience and proposing that in the space with supporting acts or whatever. All I'm saying is lean into who you want to be, not necessarily look at these corporate structures as the thing that defines you, but more so what can they do for you. Treat yourself as an entity, as a business, as you navigate these spaces, and be okay if the door closes and if that space doesn't allow for you to be who you are, then that's just not where you're supposed to be. And it's like for the big picture for yourself.
Yeah, I can hear that. I feel that.
I went on a tangent, my bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. I think that's wonderful advice. I feel like if you're a creative that also has a business side, you're always going to kind of walk that line. Should I go and do what my art says, or should I take the check? And sometimes you can make them work together, and sometimes you can't. And so I feel like what you're saying is, you know, like I kind of want to say, like, why'd you quit Google, right? Because people would say, ooh, you were at Google, that must have been an awesome experience. You know, you can say why, or you don't have to, but is it something that would benefit people to know? Like, was it infringing upon you in a way, or you just done it? You're just like, yeah.
No, it was for me when I got my degree in animation, and when I found out that most animators only do the background or only paint the cells, or I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be Tim Burton. I want to be Disney. I want to create those worlds. And for me, it was always I didn't have the tools or the understanding to be in the rooms to understand how to pitch a deck. You know, how to create a pitch deck,
All the things you need to know.
or even being on set to do a commercial spot, or working with talent, et cetera, et cetera. Being in the audio houses, being in the color correction rooms. So for me, it was more so about, again, it was me taking myself through a university that I saw fit while I practice. I'm a painter, I animate, I'm a photographer, I'm doing all these things at the same time. So for me, again, it was a game of chess, putting these titles on my resume. For me, as a black man navigating these spaces, it was more so a form of getting respect, the same with a degree. Oh my God, you worked at Leo Burnett. Oh, you worked at Havas. Oh, you worked at Google. Most people don't want to hear anything that I have to say, or don't think I'm offering anything, especially the way I look. I don't look like the traditional whatever the hell, you know? So then when someone says, oh no, this is logic. Oh, he also did this. Now the whole attention is a bit different. Like, they want to listen. It's unfortunate to do these things, right? Or to do these things to navigate. But personally, I'm wanting to create my own version of Disney, like I said earlier. And in order to do that, those things performed what they did for me, whether it was access to rooms, access to conversations, to people, to spaces. I get flown out to LA to do a spot, or New York. I would go 2 days earlier, and I would stay 2 days later. They gotta fly you there, they gotta fly you back. I would perform my job, and then do a photo shoot or do whatever I had to do in the cities, because I didn't have the funds to do it myself.
Okay, that's strategic.
It's like,
I
it's
get
playing
it.
the game, yeah.
Yeah, so there are lots of ways to build relationships, and so being strategic about what you choose and what what you give up in the process, but what you gain as well. Sylvia, I was gonna say that, when we talk about diversifying roles, you talked about public radio. Public radio is traditionally a very white space, and here you are, Latina woman. What was that like for you to, push those boundaries or go into that role? And what did you learn about yourself or others that you can offer that would help students going into spaces where they are maybe othered or brought in a way, but they realize, oh, there's not a lot of me that I can look at?
That's a big question, and I think I don't have a definitive answer to what the formula is yet, because I think that my feeling about it has changed throughout the course of my career. It was a challenging process to navigate this sort of space of public radio for all of the reasons that you just said. Sometimes just being the only woman of color in the room, being Latina, being sometimes the youngest in the space of older white men, and just being taken seriously, right? Just being taken seriously, and having your expertise valued. So many of the things that Logic has said is like, you show up, your true and authentic self, and sometimes your superpower is learning like the business jargon that applies to things that you already know how to do. You just put a name on top of you just code it in language that they understand. And so
Code.
buzzword, right? And so I, in many cases, I think just my tools for survival were just being able to know my worth, to know when I was in a room unfortunately, sometimes you're in a situation where you're not only speaking up for yourself, but you're speaking up for a whole community of people. And recognizing the power that comes with that, right? Because if you don't say something in those spaces, when you have access to those spaces, they will be fine with that. They will go on happily in their lives existing. And your community and the communities that you know need to be represented in that room, they won't get theirs, right? And so that was one of the very exhausting challenges, I think, that continues to happen. I'm sure this happened at Google to you, a gazillion times, and I think, as you talk to, try to make appeals to foundations and to folks to support your work, it's exhausting. It is really, really exhausting.
I'll breathe for you. Aisha, can you relate?
Definitely. For me, I left something that I founded, again, leveraging the skills here, Mural, formerly the Lupe Fiasco Foundation. I had hit founder syndrome, like, all right, I need to do something else. We've served our purpose, so we sunsetted. And then I came across this book, The Death Gap, and it was painting the life expectancy gap from where we sit here and 10 West Side communities. I'm a West Sider, born and raised in East Garfield Park. So that struck a chord with me, and the person who wrote the book was a doctor by the name of David Ansel, who called out his privilege, called out his field on their role in aiding in the life expectancy gap. So I was intrigued, and then I came across, and I think in owning your power, owning the value that you have, I want to say too, there's power in manifestation. I'm real big on vision boards, surrounding yourself. The biggest network that I've built to date was here while I was in school. When I started, my classmate was at Northeastern Illinois University, the campus in Bronzeville. That's where my office was. When I started on my choreographic journey, another classmate was at the Chicago Dance Makers Forum, and we connected. So I do want to say that. But on this journey, I had an opportunity to apply for this initiative, and this was healthcare executives, okay, typically folks that are not of color, when you're talking about a chief medical officer or chief executive officer of the hospital. So here I am, this Black woman from the west side of Chicago, now going into these spaces where, yes, I rep Columbia hard, but they got degrees from Harvard and all these other places. And I have to convince them to listen to me, because I've had the lived experience on the west side in the community that has the lowest life expectancy gap. I understand what those conditions are. So just as you both have said, when it's talking about generating a strategy, my own unique experience allows me to prevail in those spaces. So it's a constant connecting, and it's all about finding your allies too. Because what Dr. Ansel could do, I could not do as a Black woman. He had to call his peers to the table, and once that table was set, I came in to help continue that conversation. So be brave, call out, push back. Our work has now had a case study at Harvard University, and I'm thinking, oh, Harvard, but it's like, yo, you teach in the class, they want to know from you. All because of your lived experience and your authenticity, so don't get it twisted. So just know that as you move into spaces, just own who you are, what you bring to the table, be pliable, and always stay a student. Always look around to see what you can learn and what you can continue to add in your toolkit. And then lastly, I just want to say your network is your net worth. So who you have, and they're a representation of you. Like, I want to just say really quickly, these things tell you what? That I'm a mom, right? I have an 8-month-old baby back at home. That your net worth is that. Your network is that. When you look around the space, they are identifiers, and they should be representing what it is that you want to be. And it should be diverse. It should be folks that don't look like you, that might have different majors, that challenge you for your journey and what it is that you want to create and contribute.
Here, here, yeah. right? And that's what we're talking about, expanding our horizons, building relationships. Your network is your net worth. I love it. So do we have any questions for our panelists? Put your hands up. I'll come to you, or you can come to the, come on, somebody. You want to ask them something, yes. Come on up. Thanks, you can just talk on the mic. I think
Don't be
it's-
shy.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Russell. I graduated in a couple weeks, so.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you. I wrote this down as you guys were talking. I like to sell myself as a brand, so it's for all of you to answer if you can. What are some key things to remember or include when you are selling yourself or trying to give an elevator pitch to an employer?
One of the things is, I think it's scary to call yourself a brand. It's good to identify that's what it is, but I think if you approach it such, you kind of get kind of convoluted in who you will inevitably become. It just kind of gets weird. Because you're a person, you know what I'm saying? And one of those things is when you're talking about yourself, I think people have short attention spans. So when I speak about what I'm doing, I speak about things that have affected something. What have you done that affected something for the upside? So you can get into like, I was born here, I did this, blah, 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 blah. But what are those three things? Understand who your audience is, who you're speaking to, understand what they need to benefit from, and speaking those things that are actionable and things that affect something for the upside, and keep it short and sweet. It's just your personality, right? People want to work with who they want, who they like. So that's why it's like, kind of remove that brand thought. Just be you, and who you are will inevitably be who people identify you, which will be your brand. Right.
Just to build off of that thought, which I think that's great advice. I mean, I think a lot of what I think about is like how you express like your core values, right? And so like when you are talking to somebody and you're expressing to somebody, you know, that you are a creative spirit, that you know, always, you know, reach for the stars, that you are, you know, whatever it is that you like, you know, at your core, however it is to describe yourself, that you always sort of have like your examples of how you manifest that, how you represent that in your day-to-day life.
And I would say you look like spring, honey. So in terms of, you know, from the hair to the colors to the nails, so that's part of what you have going on now. But know who you're pitching to. You know, who are they? And with that, to everything that Dave said, identify how you will elevate what they have going on, bringing your own special sauce in that. And I think that will help you. So study who you are pitching to, master, know from top to bottom where they are and if they are in alignment. And she mentioned in those core values, you know, show how they coalesce and how you bring added value.
Excellent question, thank you.
Hi, so anyways, I'm soon to be graduating in the coming of the second week of May, you know, and I'm
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm hoping to find a job somewhere in the cinema and television video editing industry, you know, maybe not, if I'm hoping some sort of, doesn't have to be a big studio or anything. So what advice would you say, you know, to share your work as, you know, I haven't really made any work, but, you know, I have an Instagram page that holds, you know, that I build off of, you know, that only shows, you know, cartoons and whatnot, not just random stuff. So what advice would you say for that, you know?
And what capacity are you trying to work with film? Like, for what kind of role?
Maybe maybe for the, you know, adding, putting in the videos where they need to go, you know, for scene by scene sort of thing. You know, maybe for, maybe like buying some, you know, maybe like buying a Foley sound effects sort of feel, you know, and, you know, maybe a soundtrack advisor or, you know, I'm just spitballing here.
No, I got it. So I went through the film track as an animator, and then we kind of like animation up here, and then I have like friends that are producers, cinematographers. And one of the things that I learned as we were all in college, don't wait till you graduate to look for a job, first and foremost. And the reason why I say this is because what we often consider jobs is the return on investment financially versus meeting a few people and making yourself available to help them on sets, music videos, commercial spots. Do it for free. And what this does is it gets you in the door, you get to learn things, again, take yourself to your own type of university. And what this does is you get to develop relationships with people who are, whether starting out from the ground up or in some type of mid-level situation. And I've seen this happen. My friend was a cinematographer, his name is Nathan Ray Salter. He graduated from here, graduated 2013. I saw him do music videos, I saw him do TV commercials, I saw him do all these things, but with friends. All these people around you he works with from college. And when now he's shooting The Shy, he's a cinematographer for The Shy. He's 32, he doesn't even hold the camera anymore. He's telling the camera holder, the DP, what to do, right? But this came from, and everyone he works with, whether they're animators or we all communicated from the lower level, doing things for free, offering ourselves up at the ground level. And what you do is you have those relationships and you all learn and progress together. Now they all like living in LA and New York and stuff, doing things. But just kind of make yourself available for the beginning, being a personal assistant or a grip, you know.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is I feel like Chicago is finally starting to flex some muscle in its position in the film and cinematography industry. I think you see it around the city with the Chicago Made sort of advertising and really, touting like all of the production that's happening, right? All the Chicago PDs and shows that they have. So I would just as something to do on the checklist is sort of keep checking back also like on the City of Chicago website, because I feel like they're constantly putting information on like the happenings that's happening in the film industry, because they are really trying to build this as a hub for folks to like not leave and move to New York and LA. So just kind of keep your eyes on what's happening in the city, just generally. And the City of Chicago page has a lot of great information as well.
And I would echo everything they said. Don't be afraid to pay your dues. That's where you plant the seeds. That's where those great lessons that are going to form your trajectory lie. So get in there, jump in there, and collect your allies in your network. And then I'd also say, hold your professors accountable and the people at this school that you pay tuition to. So reach out and see if they're shooting something or if they have contacts that you can be a part of to continue and start since you're graduating in a few weeks. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. We also had the Chicago Film Office in the virtual career fair this morning, so that app is still open if you want to check them out. But they did actually recommend going to the DK's website, Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, to find out what is going on. So very sound advice and reinforcement of an idea. Okay.
Hi, my name is Tara, and I'm an animation major and a sophomore. I had some questions. Like, I'm now applying for internships. What advice would you have for me? Like, did you have connections when you got your first internships in animation, or when you got in the industry, what did you see that, as someone who hasn't had an internship, what should I showcase, to get luck in the field?
So my internships were in advertising. I didn't want to work at an animation studio. I am an animator. But one of those things is when you look, do you have a portfolio? Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Everybody can go to school. If not, you need to hold your professors accountable. I think everything is just relationships. For me, a lot of my success or my internships or anything, jobs, came from a person that I know, which is why I think my man's up here was talking, was like, it is important to get in tune with a lot of people that have a lot of things going on, just ask a lot of questions and make yourself available. What you said, don't put in that grunt work or whatever. But as far as the internships, I would check in with one of your professors if advertising tracks. I can more so speak on that.
You also mentioned that you wanted to branch away from just coloring and cells and stuff for backgrounds, and that you wanted to do something bigger. What steps are you taking to work with you said make your own
Yeah, so for me, it was, we understand creativity, right? To your own discernment, right? So then if I'm wanting to create something so robust, like if you think about it, Disney, we all unanimously go to Disneyland or Disney World without batting an eyelash. We're going to someone's planet, you know, which is wild to think about. So I'm from Ferguson, Missouri. I have to understand the resources that were available to me in order for me to understand the certain conversation about the way macroeconomics work, the way that processes work on sets, the way that business acumen, creating pitch decks. I wouldn't have learned that just being an animator. So for me, I have to take a step back, reverse engineer. Who's telling the people to create these things? It's people that can see the entire field. They can see the marketing aspect. They can see the rollout. They can see trends in the world, so they know what kind of stories to tell. So then you have to. That's me becoming a creative director at Google. Then I created my own agency at Leo Burnett called Naomi. This is me playing chess in places and applying my creativity to see pressure points and things of that nature. Because Tim Burton has to be a certain monster to create the worlds he created in Batman, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and then could continue that aesthetic through marketing, et cetera, et cetera. See, it can't just be a one-trick pony, so I had to identify the tools that I needed, which were, I just was very intentional about the things that I wanted to dive into, you know? I treated, you know, like now, I'm not just an art dude, I'm an art dude who has a business perspective.
Yeah, I'm, well, like applying to, I did apply to Disney and like,
That's dope.
yeah, I did notice that like my art style was kind of different, like very different from Disney. And like, I didn't want to be a one-trick pony, like just drawing in mind, like I wanted to show that I have a diversity in art. But like, I kind of faced like struggles with like accepting it because like it's kind of like branching out of like something that I like to draw in. Like, what advice do you have for that? Like, is it good, should I just stick with my own art style? Because I know Disney wants to see like a diversity and skill, but like I know that I also have to show that I could draw the characters.
This is an amazing question. Because you can almost approach it the same way I approached it and look at it as, excuse me, you don't know shit, right? And what you learn at Disney will be monumental. And it's always like when I was working in these places, I looked at them again as a function. And when you identify why you're there, then spending 2 years or 3 years at Disney is priceless. You gotta look at it, you're looking at it like, okay, I learned how to do storyboards properly. I learned the step 1, step 2, step 3. I know how to communicate to voice actors. I know how to do this on a scale that I don't know how to do. So now you understand why you're doing it and have an exit plan in mind. So every agency that I was at, I'm gonna be here for 2 years, a year and a half, and I was always understanding why I was at a specific place. You see? So now just because you do this thing don't mean you can do your own thing, especially with the power of NFTs and Web3, which we can talk about later.
Right on. So give it up for our panelists, Aisha Neko, Sonia Rivera, and Logic. So we're going to move this wall and we're going to have a roundtable discussion. We've got some more alumni coming in to mentor you. You can have these smaller conversations. You can ask deeper questions. I know that Logic's coming down for a table. I think my other guests have to take off for the afternoon or stick around if you want, but we're gonna take it to Studio B in this auditorium space. So I feel raise that wall, and I don't know where my tech is, so if we can get him back in the room, we're gonna raise that wall, or you can walk out in the hallway and we'll go into the other side. Thank you so much. We're continuing code today. We've still got a lot planned. The roundtable discussions are next, and then after that, headshots at 2, starting at 2, from 2 to 4. Luster's Products Inc. will be here giving out swag bags, lots of hair care products. We've got lots of giveaways, lots of fun. The CCC DJ Club DJs are back, and that's it for the moment. Thank you.